Very pleased to have with us in studio tonight the president of the National Rifle Association, Mr. David Keene, is joining us. David, thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Always a pleasure.
You know, this is such a strange day. In many ways, it's a painful day. We remember those who we lost, but we also remember those who survived. We remember those who fought back. We remember the heroes and the courageous actions of so many Americans. I'll be honest with you. I've not been depressed today. I was worried, kind of, that I would be depressed, but I've tried to focus on those heroes and what President Bush said yesterday. That while one of the lessons of 9/11 is that evil is real, so is courage.
Well, that's right. And we don't commemorate defeats. We commemorate heroism. That's what Veterans Day is about. That's why we celebrate those who have sacrificed so much for America in the past, and that's why we recognize what happened 10 years ago, not just because of the tragedy and not just because of the fact that we were attacked by an enemy that would like to wipe us from the face of the earth, but because we rose above that challenge, that threat, as we've risen above every threat in the past. It's interesting because, 2 days, I think it was, after 9/11, after then Secretary of Defense Don Rumsfeld had waded in to the chaos that ensued from the plane that hit the Pentagon and helped drag people to safety, he said that if we allowed the attack on our country and our civilization by these terrorists to change the nature of the way we live, if it caused us in our fight against them to give up all that we'd fought to build over these centuries, then they would have won. And as you look back over 10 years, there have been mistakes made. We may have done, I think sometimes with some of the airport security things, we've gone a little too far. There are questions as to what may be necessary and what may not be necessary, but several facts remain. One, we have prevented, it's not accurate to say there haven't been any attacks since 9/11. There have been several attempted attacks since 9/11. And because of what we've been able to do, we've prevented those attacks. And we've done that without compromising the basic nature of our society and our civilization. I just flew down from New York, where you were talking to Tom just a minute ago, and I was up there to meet with gun owners, who also was the 10th anniversary of their annual meeting. And it just happened to coincide this year with the observations on the attack at 9/11. I said to them, what could be more appropriate than on the anniversary of this attack on our civilization and our way of life for Americans to get together and to commemorate and celebrate their freedom? And that's what it's all about. It's about us standing up to whatever enemies we have had, and we've had many different enemies from many different places on the globe over the years, and say, try as you might, America will and does and always has prevailed.
Absolutely. I was talking earlier about my own experiences, and the most, the thing I remember the most is picking up my son, who was just a little more than a year old at the time, and driving home with him. And we drove past, I lived in Oklahoma City at the time, we drove past a gas station, and somebody had jacked up the prices to, $5.50 a gallon, and there were lines. And I just remember looking in the rearview mirror at my son in his car seat and saying, boy, kid, the world that you will live in is going to be a lot different than the one that I grew up in. And I thought about that today as I'm watching my kid ride his bike with his friends on our suburban street, and he's playing on his skateboard, and we had gone out to our local neighborhood festival, and I'm so glad that I was wrong.
It's not as different as you thought it was.
Not at all.
It's not as different as a lot of people feared that it would be. Doesn't mean that we've completely prevailed. We haven't. Doesn't mean that evil's been eradicated from the world. It hasn't and never will be. It does mean that America remains what America has always been, a civilization comprised of people who rise to whatever challenge they have to confront. And we've done it again. We'll continue to do it, and we'll do it, hopefully, as we have in the past, without compromising the nature of what it is we're trying to preserve.
Somebody brought up the phrase American exceptionalism today, and You know, I believe in American exceptionalism, but it's not something that comes from our soil, and it's not something that comes from our symbols. It comes from us. We have it within ourselves to be as exceptional as our forefathers have been. We have generations of examples, and I'm so grateful and so thankful that we have so many Americans who continue to be exceptional Americans and to make this country an exceptional place.
Well, that's right. And there are some people who think that just because we're America, just because of that, that everything will go all right. We see that in the wake of the current fiscal crisis we're in. If you tell many people, well, look, country X did A, B, C, and D and went right over the cliff, and we're doing A, B, C, and D, they'll say, well, that won't happen here because this is America. That's not what's exceptional about America. What's exceptional about America is our people and the structures put in place by our founders so that our people could realize their potential. And thank God, throughout our history, our people have recognized that connection and have fought and done what they've had to do to preserve those structures and preserve the nature of what it is that makes us an exceptional country.
Any final thoughts here? We're almost running out of time, but any final thoughts to NRA members or to those just listening tonight about what we do moving forward?
Well, what we do as a nation is what we have done in the past, and I think everybody has a personal remembrance of what happened 10 years ago, and everybody acted differently in the wake of what occurred then. I was up 2 blocks from the Capitol having a press conference with then Republican Whip Tom DeLay. I forget what it was about, and all of a sudden these black Suburbans pulled up and took Tom away, and the reporters left, and there I was on the street corner, 2 blocks from the Capitol, and people running in my direction. And I had to fight my way into the subway to the metro system, which was actually the most dangerous place in Washington that afternoon or that morning, to get back to my office, which was near the White House, because I couldn't go home because I'd have to go by the Pentagon. So remember that. My daughter joined the Army shortly thereafter, served 2 tours in Iraq, and is now preparing to go to Afghanistan. A lot of people who never would have thought that they were going to get involved or were going to stand up did so. And that's happened in previous wars. It's happened as we faced previous challenges. So I think that the lesson of 9/11 is that Americans are still Americans and always will be.
David Keene, president of the National Rifle Association. Thank you so much, sir. Real pleasure having you in studio.
My pleasure.